Hello everyone. In today's video, I bring you a gripping story that will shake you to your core. We're going to meet Serafina Cole, an ordinary woman who had a near-death experience during surgery and came back with a shocking revelation about the future of humanity. What she experienced on the other side will leave you speechless. Get ready to hear a chilling warning. The end of the world is closer than we think. So, before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the notification bell to receive all updates. Now, brace yourself, because this journey will take you beyond comprehension. My name is Serafina Cole, and I'm about to share with you a story that, just a few years ago, I would have had trouble believing myself. I am an ordinary woman, a mother to a lovely girl named Lydia, who is now 10 years old. Before the events I'm about to narrate, I lived a life like anyone else. I worked as an accountant, took care of my family, and occasionally dealt with the back pain that had plagued me for years. Everything changed on what seemed like an ordinary day in January 2022. I had finally decided to undergo spinal fusion surgery to treat my chronic pain. The doctors assured me it was a relatively routine procedure, though delicate. I entered the hospital that Wednesday morning expecting relief and a smooth recovery. Little did I know that day would mark the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about life and death. The surgery itself went as planned. I remember waking up in the recovery room, groggy but relieved to have made it through the procedure. The doctor smiled, saying everything had gone well and that I could go home in a few hours. My husband, John Bryan, was there, holding my hand and telling me how much he loved me. Everything seemed normal, exactly as it should after a successful surgery. I went home that afternoon exhausted but optimistic. Lydia was happy to see me, hugging me gently, aware of my stitches. I spent the rest of the day resting, taking the prescribed painkillers, and adjusting to the idea of a gradual recovery. As night approached, I started feeling something strange. At first, I thought it was just post-surgery fatigue, or perhaps a side effect of the medication. But as the hours passed, I realized something was terribly wrong. My thoughts began to feel hazy, as if they were slipping away from me. Reality around me seemed distorted, the shapes and colors blending in strange ways. I tried to call John, but my voice wouldn't come out. That's when I felt it. My body was giving up. Panic flooded me as I realized I couldn't move. It was as if my mind was trapped inside a body that no longer responded. I saw Lydia's frightened face beside me, her small hands holding mine, her eyes pleading for me to respond. I wanted so much to comfort her, to say that everything would be all right, but I couldn't do anything except stare. The next moments were a blur of frantic activity. John called an ambulance, and soon paramedics stormed into our house. They spoke quickly, their voices sounding distant and muffled to me. I felt myself being lifted, placed on a stretcher, and taken to the ambulance. The lights flashed, the sirens blared, but it all seemed to be happening miles away. As the ambulance raced through the streets, I felt my consciousness slipping further away. It was as if I were being pulled away from my own body, observing everything from a completely new perspective. The initial fear was replaced by an odd sense of calm, and then, in an instant, everything went dark. At that moment, I didn't know it, but I was about to embark on a journey that would fundamentally change my understanding of life, death, and everything in between, an experience that would take me beyond the limits of what I believed possible and bring me back with a mission I could never have imagined. The moment my consciousness separated from my body is something I will never forget. It was like waking from a dream, but instead of returning to the familiar reality, I found myself in a completely new state of being. The darkness that enveloped me when I lost consciousness in the ambulance suddenly lifted, and I found myself floating above my own body. It was an indescribable sensation. There was no weight, no pain, no physical limitations. I was pure awareness, watching the scene below me with astonishing clarity. I saw my body lying on the hospital stretcher, pale and still. The doctors and nurses moved frantically around me, their urgent voices echoing in the emergency room. "We're losing her! one of the doctors shouted, his hands pressing down on my chest in a desperate attempt at resuscitation. I saw the heart monitor beside the stretcher, the flat line blinking ominously. It was surreal to watch my own body in that state, knowing that somehow I still existed outside of it. I looked at my hand, or at least where my hands should have been, but saw nothing. I was just awareness, a point of perception floating freely, yet I could feel my presence, a sense of existence that went beyond the physical. As I watched the scene below, I realized I could see through the hospital walls. I saw my husband, John, in the waiting room, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Lydia was beside him, her wide eyes filled with fear and confusion. I wanted so badly to reach out to them, to comfort them, to tell them I was okay, that there was nothing to fear, but there was no way to communicate with them. In that moment, I felt an immense compassion for everyone there. The doctors fighting to save my life, my family tormented by uncertainty, and even my own body, which seemed so fragile and vulnerable from where I was. It was as if I could feel the love and fear emanating from all of them, an invisible web of emotions I had never noticed before. As I observed, I began to notice something else. Tiny points of light, like golden sparks, floated around the people. They seemed to move with their emotions, glowing brightly with moments of hope, dimming with fear and sadness. It was as if I could see the essence of life, the energy that animates all of us. Suddenly I felt a gentle pull, as if something was calling me away from that scene. It wasn't a physical force, but a kind of internal urge, an instinctive knowing that it was time to leave. I hesitated for a moment, reluctant to leave my family and my body behind, but the pull persisted, gentle but insistent. As I drifted away, I saw the entire hospital, then the whole city spread out beneath me. The city lights seemed to mirror the sparks of energy I had seen earlier, as if the whole earth was alive and pulsing with an inner light. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. The earth, the hospital, my body, everything was left behind. I was traveling through a vast, dark void, but strangely, I didn't feel afraid. There was a sense of purpose in this journey, as if I was being guided to somewhere important. As I moved through this undefined space, I began to feel a presence around me. It wasn't something I could see or hear in the traditional sense, but a consciousness that seemed to permeate the entire space around me. It was vast, ancient, and incredibly wise. I felt like I was about to encounter something beyond my understanding, something that would forever change my perception of reality. It was in that moment that I realized my journey was just beginning. What I had experienced so far was only the prelude to something much greater, much deeper. I was about to delve into the mysteries of the universe, and nothing would ever be the same after that. As the darkness of the void faded, I found myself immersed in a completely new environment. It was a vast, limitless space, filled with a soft, diffuse light. There was no ground, no sky, no horizon, just an infinite expanse of ethereal whiteness. It was like being inside a cloud, but a cloud made of pure light. This whitish space had a peculiar quality. Although it appeared empty, it felt full of potential and meaning. It was as if every particle of this nothingness was charged with information and consciousness. The feeling was of being everywhere and nowhere at the same time, an experience that defied my previous understanding of space and time. In this surreal environment, I realized that my perception had drastically changed. I was no longer limited to the 5 usual senses. Instead, I experienced everything around me in a holistic, multi-dimensional way. I could feel the vibrations of the space, hear the resonant silence, see beyond the visible. It was as if all my senses had merged into a single, all-encompassing sense, capable of perceiving reality in its entirety. As I adjusted to this new mode of perception, I began to notice subtle variations in the space around me. Waves of energy rippled through the void, creating complex and beautiful patterns that resembled fractals. These ripples seemed to respond to my thoughts and emotions, as if the environment itself was an extension of my consciousness. That's when I realized this space was not just a place, but a state of being. It was an intermediate realm between the physical and the spiritual, a place where consciousness could exist free from the limitations of the material body. Here, thoughts and emotions held as much weight as physical matter did in the world I had left behind. As I explored this new state of existence, I felt a deep sense of peace and belonging. All the worries and fears I carried in life seemed insignificant now. Time had no meaning in this place. It could have been a second or an eternity, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. However, even in this profound peace, I felt there was a purpose for my presence here. An expectation hung in the air, as if the space itself was waiting for something. I didn't know what it was, but I was certain I would soon find out. It was at this moment of anticipation that I noticed something new forming in the space around me. Two shapes began to materialize before me. At first, they were just subtle distortions in the ambient light, almost imperceptible. But gradually, they gained definition and brilliance. The shapes solidified into two golden spheres, floating serenely in the white space. They were objects of indescribable beauty, radiating a light that seemed to come from within. Their surfaces shimmered with intricate patterns that constantly shifted, as if they were made of living energy. As I observed these spheres, I felt a presence emanating from them. It wasn't a physical presence, but a vast, ancient consciousness. It was like being in the presence of beings who had witnessed the birth and death of stars, who understood the deepest secrets of the universe. Instinctively, I knew these spheres weren't mere objects, but entities of some kind, beings of pure energy and wisdom. They pulsed gently, as if they were breathing, and each pulse sent waves of energy through the surrounding space. The sense of expectation I had felt before intensified. I knew I was about to communicate with these entities, and that this communication would fundamentally change my understanding of reality. My entire being was focused on these golden spheres, waiting for what was to come. In that moment, suspended in that void full of meaning, in the presence of these beings of light, I understood that I was about to receive revelations that transcended any earthly knowledge. Whatever these entities had to show or tell me, I knew it would be profound and transformative. And so, with a mix of reverence and anticipation, I prepared myself for what was to come, knowing that my journey through this realm beyond life was only just beginning. The golden spheres pulsed with an energy that seemed to pass through my entire being. Then, without warning, they began to communicate with me. It wasn't verbal communication in the traditional sense. It was as if their messages were transmitted directly to my consciousness, filling me with instant knowledge and understanding. The first revelation I received was overwhelming in its simplicity and depth. Everything in the universe is interconnected. This wasn't just an abstract idea, but a fundamental truth I could feel in every fiber of my being. I saw how every thought, every action, every particle of existence was intrinsically linked to all the others. The universe wasn't a collection of separate parts, but a unified whole, pulsating with life and consciousness. The spheres showed me how this interconnectedness manifested at all levels of existence. I saw distant galaxies influencing the dance of atoms in our bodies, and how our daily choices created ripples that extended through the fabric of the cosmos. It was a vision of unity so profound that it made me question the entire concept of individuality I had before. Next, the spheres revealed the nature of reality after death. Contrary to many popular beliefs, there was no clearly defined heaven or hell. Instead, there were countless levels or dimensions of existence, each corresponding to different states of consciousness and spiritual development. I saw how souls, after leaving their physical bodies, naturally gravitated to the level that matched their state of evolution. Some souls, those who had lived with compassion and wisdom, ascended to higher levels, where they could continue their spiritual growth and even help other souls on their journey. Others, trapped by material attachments or negative emotions, remained in denser levels, where they would have to work through their limitations before they could advance. The spheres showed me that the life we live on Earth is not the end, but just a chapter in a much larger journey of spiritual evolution. Every experience, every challenge, every relationship serves a greater purpose of growth and self-knowledge. I saw how the choices we make in life have consequences that extend far beyond our physical existence. Another profound revelation was about the nature of time. From the sphere's perspective, past, present, and future existed simultaneously. I saw how events we consider past or future were all happening at once in different points of the space-time continuum. This perspective made me realize that our linear notions of time are just a limitation of our three-dimensional perception. The spheres also revealed to me the true nature of love. It wasn't just an emotion, but a fundamental force of the universe, as real and tangible as gravity. I saw how love, in its purest form, was the force that held the cosmos together, driving the evolution and growth of all things. I understood that every act of love, no matter how small, contributed to the harmony and balance of the entire universe. As I absorbed these truths, the spheres began to show me something more specific and alarming. I saw images of Earth, our blue planet, beautiful and fragile in the vast ocean of space. But as I watched, I began to see signs of disturbance and imbalance. The spheres were showing me the future of humanity, and what I saw filled me with concern and urgency. I realized I was being prepared for an even greater revelation, one that would have direct implications not just for me, but for all of humanity. The spheres pulsed with renewed intensity, and I braced myself to receive what they had to show me next. The feeling of being in the presence of such vast and profound knowledge was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Each revelation opened new perspectives, challenging everything I thought I knew about reality. Yet, I sensed that what was to come would be even more impactful and crucial. The golden spheres intensified their glow, and suddenly, I was immersed in a series of vivid and disturbing visions. What I saw wasn't just a projection of the future, but a tangible reality unfolding before my eyes, as real as the world I had left behind. The first image that emerged was of Earth seen from space. Our planet, once a beautiful blue and green globe, now looked sick and wounded. Large areas were covered by a dark haze, as if a shadow had spread over entire continents. As the vision zoomed in, I could see the details of this devastation on a human scale. Entire cities were in ruins, swallowed by floods or destroyed by earthquakes of unimaginable magnitude. I saw volcanoes erupting simultaneously in different parts of the world, spewing ash and lava that darkened the skies. The oceans raged violently, with massive waves sweeping over coastlines and swallowing entire islands. But the most frightening part wasn't the natural disasters themselves, as terrible as they were. What horrified me was the understanding that these events weren't random or merely geological. The spheres showed me that every catastrophe was intrinsically linked to human actions, the accumulation of decades, even centuries, of neglect and destruction. I saw how pollution and deforestation had thrown Earth's natural systems out of balance, leading to catastrophic climate changes. I witnessed the melting of polar ice caps and the rising sea levels, flooding coastal cities and forcing mass migrations. Resource scarcity led to global conflicts, with nations fighting for control over the last reserves of clean water and arable land. But the visions went beyond physical disasters. The spheres showed me the spiritual state of humanity, and what I saw was equally disturbing. I saw people consumed by fear, hatred, and greed. Communities turned against one another, empathy and compassion forgotten in the face of the struggle for survival. Violence spread like a plague, fueled by desperation and scarcity. The most distressing part was seeing how this spiritual degradation both fed into and was fed by the physical disasters. It was a vicious cycle of destruction, where environmental collapse led to social collapse, which in turn accelerated the destruction of the planet. The spheres made me understand that this crisis was not just material, but deeply spiritual. I saw millions of souls departing in waves, unprepared and confused, overwhelming the spiritual realms. Many of these souls, bound by fear and resentment, remained close to Earth, creating a dense and turbulent spiritual atmosphere that only exacerbated the problems of the physical world. The spheres showed me that this future wasn't inevitable, but it was the path humanity was heading towards unless there was a drastic change of course. I saw alternative timelines, possibilities for a different future, where humanity chose the path of wisdom, compassion, and harmony with nature. But these possibilities seemed fragile, dependent on crucial choices that needed to be made now. As the visions intensified, I felt the weight of responsibility growing within me. I realized that I was being shown this future for a reason. The spheres were preparing me for something, a mission I didn't yet fully understand. As the images of destruction and suffering passed before me, I felt a deep sadness but also a growing determination. I knew that what I was seeing wasn't just a warning, but a call to action. Humanity needed to change course, and somehow I would have a role to play in that change. The visions began to fade, and I found myself once again in the ethereal white space, in the presence of the golden spheres. But now, there was a sense of urgency in the air. I knew that what was to come next would be crucial, not just for me, but for the future of all humanity. The apocalyptic visions dissipated, but their impact remained vividly in my consciousness. The golden spheres pulsed with renewed intensity, and I sensed they were about to reveal something of extreme importance. It was then that I received what I can only describe as a divine mission. The spheres began transmitting a clear and urgent message. People need to return to the teachings of the Bible. This phrase reverberated through my being with a force that surprised me. It wasn't just a simple suggestion or advice, but a cosmic imperative, a key to avoiding the devastating future I had witnessed. As the message unfolded, I understood that it wasn't about a literal or dogmatic interpretation of the scriptures. The spheres showed me that the fundamental teachings found in the Bible, love, compassion, forgiveness, respect for divine creation, were universal principles that transcended any specific religion. These principles, when truly lived, had the power to transform individuals and, by extension, society as a whole. I saw how the abandonment of these fundamental principles had contributed to the precarious state in which humanity found itself. The reckless pursuit of material wealth, selfishness, indifference to the suffering of others, and the careless exploitation of natural resources, all of this was the result of forgetting these essential truths. The spheres showed me that the salvation of humanity would not come from technological advances or political solutions, but from a profound spiritual transformation. It was necessary to return to ancient wisdom, reconnect with the sacred, and rediscover the greater purpose of human existence. I understood that my mission was to be a messenger of these truths. I was to return to the physical world and share what I had learned, to warn people about the consequences of their actions and inspire them to embrace a path of love and compassion. The spheres warned me, if humanity did not change its course, millions of souls would disappear from the earth. This was not a threat, but a statement of the spiritual laws of the universe. Those who persisted in paths of selfishness and destruction would naturally be drawn to lower spiritual realms after death, where they would have to face the consequences of their actions. The magnitude of this responsibility left me momentarily stunned. How could I, an ordinary person, influence such a deep and global change? The spheres, sensing my doubt, filled me with a sense of confidence and strength. They showed me that I would not be alone in this mission. There would be others, scattered around the world, who would also receive similar callings. Together, we would form a network of light, working to elevate humanity's consciousness. I was instructed to speak, write, and live according to the truths that had been revealed to me. I was to share my experience without fear, even knowing that I would face skepticism and resistance. The spheres assured me that those who were ready to hear the message would recognize it in their hearts. Additionally, I received specific guidance on how to help people reconnect with the divine. Practices of meditation, prayer, and contemplation of nature were shown to be powerful paths for this reconnection. I was instructed to emphasize the importance of practical acts of love and service, for it was through these actions that spiritual transformation would manifest in the physical world. The spheres also showed me the importance of caring for the planet. The Earth was not just a resource to be exploited, but a living being, a manifestation of the divine. Caring for nature, respecting all forms of life, and living in harmony with the environment were crucial parts of the mission. As I absorbed all these instructions and responsibilities, I felt a mix of reverence and awe. The task seemed immense, almost impossible. But along with this feeling came a deep sense of purpose and determination. I knew that my life would never be the same, that every moment from then on would be dedicated to fulfilling this divine mission. The spheres began to pulse more slowly, and I felt that my time in that realm was coming to an end. There was still much to be revealed, but I knew I would carry with me what was essential. As I prepared to return, I was filled with one last wave of divine love and wisdom, strengthening me for the journey ahead. With a mix of gratitude and anticipation, I silently bade farewell to the spheres, knowing that, in some way, they would always be with me, guiding me in my mission to transform the world, one soul at a time. The return to my physical body was as intense an experience as the journey I had just undergone. In one instant, I was in the presence of the golden spheres, immersed in cosmic light and wisdom. In the next, I was pulled back into the material world with overwhelming force. The transition was abrupt and disorienting. I felt as though I was being compressed, forced back into a form that now seemed strangely limited and heavy. My consciousness, which had expanded to encompass vast dimensions of the universe, was now confined once again to the limits of my skull. I opened my eyes with a deep gasp, as if emerging from deep waters. The fluorescent hospital lights hurt my eyes, seeming raw and artificial compared to the ethereal radiance I had experienced. The sounds around me, the beeping of machines, the hurried voices of doctors and nurses, seemed distant and unreal at first. My physical senses were readjusting, struggling to process the material world after the transcendental experience I had just had. The first thing I noticed was Dr. Michael Reynolds, the surgeon who had performed my operation, leaning over me with an expression of awe and relief. "It's a miracle," he murmured, his voice trembling with emotion. "You were clinically dead for several minutes. Your organs were failing. I don't understand how this is possible." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and sore from the breathing tube that had been removed. A nurse quickly offered me water, and slowly, I was able to form words. I began but stopped. How could I explain what had happened? How could I translate that transcendental experience into everyday language? Gradually, I became aware of my body. I felt pain, discomfort, but also a surprising vitality. It was as if every cell in my being was vibrating with new energy, a deeper connection to life. I realized that despite the physical ordeal my body had been through, I felt more alive than ever. The doctors began running a series of tests, clearly perplexed by my sudden recovery. I overheard fragments of their conversations. Terms like inexplicable, unprecedented, and miraculous recovery were repeated several times. I knew that, from a medical standpoint, my survival defied all expectations. As the healthcare professionals moved around me, performing tests and checking my vitals, I struggled to integrate my spiritual experience with the physical reality around me. The memories of what I had experienced were vivid and clear, contrasting sharply with the confusion and disorientation that usually accompanies near-death experiences. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to reconnect with the sense of peace and clarity I had experienced. To my surprise, I could feel an echo of that cosmic connection. It was as if a channel had been opened, allowing me to access, even if in a limited way, that expanded consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the world in a completely new way. The colors seemed more vibrant, the sounds richer. I could feel the vital energy pulsing not only in me but in everything around me, in the people, in the plants in the hospital room, even in the inanimate objects. It was as if I could see beyond the surface of things, perceiving the fundamental interconnectedness of all existence. In that moment, the reality of the mission I had been entrusted with hit me with full force. I had returned with a purpose, a responsibility that went far beyond my own life. The urgency to share what I had learned, to warn humanity about the dangerous path it was on, was almost overwhelming. But along with that urgency came a deep sense of peace and confidence. I knew I wasn't alone in this mission. The golden spheres, or whatever those beings of light and wisdom were, had assured me that I would be guided and supported on my journey. When my family was finally allowed to see me, their faces were a mix of joy, relief, and confusion. John, my husband, held my hand tightly, tears streaming down his face. Lydia, my daughter, looked at me with a mixture of fear and fascination, as if she sensed that something profound had changed in her mother. In that moment, looking into the faces of my loved ones, I felt the weight of the responsibility I now carried. How could I explain to them what had happened? How could I prepare them for the changes to come, not just in our family life, but potentially on a global scale? As exhaustion began to take over, I closed my eyes again, silently giving thanks for the second chance I had been given. I knew that the days, weeks, and years ahead would be full of challenges, but also of profound purpose and meaning. My journey back to life was only the beginning of a much larger mission, a mission to help save humanity from a dark future and guide it back to the path of light and divine wisdom. In the days and weeks following my return, it became increasingly clear that my near-death experience had profoundly transformed me. The change wasn't just internal, in my perspective and understanding of the world, but also manifested in tangible and sometimes unsettling ways. The first thing I noticed was a heightened sensitivity to energies and emotions. It was as if a sixth sense had been activated. I could feel the emotional states of the people around me, perceiving their joys, fears, and worries as if they were colors or fragrances in the air. This new perception was sometimes overwhelming, especially in crowded places, where collective emotions formed an almost deafening cacophony. My relationship with time also changed drastically. Moments of now seemed to stretch, rich in detail and meaning. At times, I had glimpses of what seemed like the past or the future, as if the barriers of time had become permeable. These experiences were fleeting and often confusing, but they served as constant reminders of the fluid and interconnected nature of reality that I had witnessed during my journey. Physically, my body seemed to have undergone a transformation. The recovery from surgery was surprisingly swift, leaving the doctors perplexed. I felt an energy and vitality that I hadn't experienced in years. My intuition about health and well-being became incredibly sharp, as if I could hear my body in a new and profound way. But perhaps the most significant change was in my spiritual and philosophical understanding of the world. The truths that were revealed to me by the golden spheres were not mere abstract ideas, but living realities that I now perceived constantly. The interconnectedness of all things, the illusory nature of the separate ego, the constant presence of the divine in every aspect of existence. These were no longer theoretical concepts, but direct, everyday experiences. This new perception brought with it significant challenges. I often felt out of place in the normal world, unable to relate to the concerns and priorities that once seemed so important. Casual conversations about politics, celebrities, or material acquisitions now seemed trivial in the face of the cosmic vastness I had experienced. At the same time, I felt an overwhelming urgency to share what I had learned. I began to speak about my experience, first with close family and friends, then in increasingly larger circles. I wrote about my visions, gave talks to small groups, and eventually started appearing on local radio and television programs. The reactions to my stories were varied. Some listened with fascination and openness, recognizing a deep truth in my words. Others reacted with skepticism or even hostility, dismissing my experiences as hallucinations or delusions. The rejection hurt, but I understood. After all, not long ago, I myself would have doubted someone telling a similar story. To deepen my understanding and find better ways to articulate my experiences, I delved into the study of spiritual and philosophical texts from various traditions. I was surprised to find echoes of my visions in ancient writings, from Christian mystics to Hindu and Buddhist sages. I also became interested in quantum physics, fascinated by how modern science seemed to align with the cosmic truths that had been revealed to me. As I immersed myself in these studies, my mission became clearer and more focused. It wasn't just about sharing an extraordinary personal story, but about helping to awaken a higher consciousness in humanity. I began developing practices and teachings that could help people reconnect with their own divine essence and the web of life that unites us all. Throughout this process of transformation and sharing, my spiritual sensitivity continued to develop. I began to have regular visions and insights, often related to future events or situations in the lives of people around me. These experiences were both a gift and a burden, bringing with them a responsibility that sometimes felt overwhelming. However, amidst all these challenges and changes, there was one constant: the sense of purpose and direction that was given to me during my near-death experience. No matter how difficult or confusing the path might seem at times, I knew I was following a higher calling, a divine mission to help guide humanity toward a more enlightened and compassionate future. As I embraced this new reality and the responsibilities that came with it, I found myself transformed not only internally, but in every aspect of my life. My relationships, my work, my worldview. Everything was reconfigured in the light of this new understanding. And though the road ahead was uncertain and often challenging, I faced it with a courage and faith born from the depths of my transcendental experience. As the months passed and I deepened my mission of sharing the truths that had been revealed to me, I began to feel the true weight of the responsibility I had been entrusted with. The task of warning humanity about its dangerous course and inspiring a profound shift in collective consciousness was, to say the least, overwhelming. The challenges I faced were multifaceted and often unexpected. The first and perhaps most painful was the skepticism and even rejection I encountered, sometimes from the people closest to me. Longtime friends began to distance themselves, clearly uncomfortable with my new perspective and mission. Some family members, including my own brother, accused me of having suffered some form of brain damage during my near-death experience, suggesting that I needed psychiatric help. These reactions, though painful, were not entirely unexpected. I understood that what I was sharing fundamentally challenged the worldview of most people. Still, the loneliness I sometimes felt was deep and disorienting. Another significant challenge was the very nature of the message I was trying to convey. The cosmic truths and apocalyptic visions that had been shown to me were so vast and complex that I often felt inadequate to articulate them fully. How could I translate transcendental experiences into everyday language without losing their essence? How could I convey the urgency of our global dilemma without falling into alarmism or fatalism? I often found myself struggling with words, frustrated by the limitations of human language to express concepts that went beyond our three-dimensional understanding. This constant struggle to communicate my message effectively was exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. As my story spread and I began to gain some notoriety, I faced a new set of challenges. Critics emerged, some questioning my sanity, others accusing me of being a fraud seeking attention or financial gain. Although I knew my intentions were pure, these accusations still hurt and sometimes planted seeds of doubt in my mind. There were moments, usually late at night when the world was quiet, when I wondered if I was indeed losing my mind. What if all of this was truly an elaborate hallucination brought on by the trauma of my near-death experience? What if I was leading people astray, away from more tangible and practical truths? These doubts were tormenting, but paradoxically they also served as a kind of moral compass. They kept me humble, constantly reminding me to question my own perceptions and motivations. I learned to embrace these doubts as an integral part of my journey, recognizing that true faith is not the absence of doubt but the willingness to continue despite it. The physical aspect of my mission was also challenging. The constant travel to give talks and participate in interviews was draining. My body, though invigorated by my experience, still had human limits. There were times when I felt completely exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Additionally, there was the challenge of balancing my mission with my family responsibilities. John, my husband, though loving and supportive, sometimes struggled to understand the depth of my transformation and the intensity of my commitment to my new vocation. Lydia, my daughter, missed me during my travels and sometimes expressed resentment for the attention I gave to my mission. Navigating these turbulent waters of changing relationships while trying to remain true to my mission was a constant challenge. I often felt torn between my divine calling and my earthly responsibilities, struggling to find a balance that felt fair and sustainable. Another challenging aspect of my mission was dealing with people's expectations. As my story spread, I began to receive a steady stream of people seeking guidance, healing, or answers to their own spiritual struggles. While part of me rejoiced at the opportunity to help, another part felt overwhelmed by the weight of these expectations. There were those who saw me as some kind of guru or saint, projecting onto me qualities and powers I knew I did not possess. Others sought quick solutions to complex problems, expecting me to magically resolve their difficulties. Navigating these expectations, staying true to my own truth while trying not to disappoint those seeking help, was a delicate and often stressful balancing act. One of the most difficult aspects of my mission was dealing with the knowledge of the potentially catastrophic future that had been shown to me. Carrying the vision of a world in collapse, knowing that our collective actions were leading us toward that fate, was an immense burden. There were days when the weight of this awareness felt overwhelming, and I battled feelings of despair and helplessness. How could I, a single person, make a difference in the face of such vast and systemic problems? How could I inspire global change when so many seemed deaf or hostile to my message? These questions haunted me, especially during moments of rejection or indifference. Yet, amid all these challenges and doubts, I also experienced moments of profound clarity and purpose. Sometimes, during a lecture or a one-on-one conversation, I felt an almost tangible connection to that higher consciousness I had experienced during my journey. In those moments, words flowed through me with a wisdom and power that seemed to come from a source beyond myself. It was in those moments that I remembered the true purpose of my mission. It wasn't about convincing everyone or changing the world overnight. It was about planting seeds of awareness, offering an alternative perspective that, over time, could blossom into a new way of being and living. I learned to find strength in the struggle itself, recognizing that the challenges I faced were an integral part of my spiritual growth and evolution. Each obstacle, each moment of doubt, each criticism was an opportunity to deepen my understanding and refine my message. As I moved forward on my journey, I began to develop strategies for dealing with the weight of my mission. Daily meditation became an anchor, allowing me to reconnect with that source of wisdom and peace I had experienced during my near-death experience. I learned to set healthy boundaries, recognizing that I couldn't be everything to everyone and that I needed to take care of my own well-being to continue my work. I also found comfort and support in a growing community of people who resonated with my message. Slowly, I met others who had gone through similar experiences or who simply felt the truth in my words. These connections became a vital source of strength and encouragement. Reflecting on the challenges and doubts I had faced, I realized that they were an essential part of my journey. Each obstacle overcome, each moment of despair transformed into renewed hope. Each criticism that led me to articulate my truth more clearly, all of these were shaping me, preparing me to fulfill my mission in ways I couldn't always predict or understand. The weight of the mission was real and sometimes overwhelming, but it was also a sacred privilege. Carrying this responsibility transformed me in ways I could never have imagined, deepening my compassion, strengthening my resolve, and expanding my understanding of what it truly means to serve a higher purpose. As I neared the end of this chapter of my journey, I understood that the true challenge wasn't to eliminate doubts or overcome every obstacle, but to learn to dance with them, to integrate them into my life experience, and to use them as catalysts for continued growth and transformation. As I reach the end of this narrative, I feel a mixture of emotions: gratitude for the extraordinary journey I've been granted, humility in the face of the magnitude of the task I've been entrusted with, and a palpable urgency to share my final message with the world. My near-death experience and the revelations I received were not just for me. They were a call to awaken, an urgent warning for all of humanity. The future I saw, A world devastated by natural disasters, conflict, and mass suffering is not inevitable. It is a reflection of the path we are currently on, but we still have the power to change our course. The plea I make today is simple but profound. We need to change, not just in our external actions, but in our fundamental consciousness, in the way we see and interact with the world around us. The golden spheres showed me that the key to avoiding the catastrophic future I witnessed lies in returning to the fundamental principles of love, compassion, and interconnectedness that are at the heart of all great spiritual teachings. When I speak of returning to the teachings of the Bible, I am not advocating for a return to narrow religious dogma or a literal interpretation of the scriptures. Instead, I am drawing attention to the essential truths that lie at the heart of all spiritual traditions: unconditional love, forgiveness, compassion for all beings, and respect for the divine creation. We need to recognize that we are not separate beings, struggling against each other in nature. We are part of an interconnected web of life, each of us a unique expression of the divine consciousness that permeates the entire universe. When we harm others or destroy the environment, we are essentially harming ourselves. The path forward requires a radical shift in how we live and be in the world. We must abandon the selfishness, greed, and fear that have driven so many of our destructive actions. In their place, we must cultivate love, compassion, and the wisdom that is our true nature. This means making conscious choices in our daily lives. From the words we speak and the thoughts we nurture to the decisions we make about consumption, work, and relationships. Every act of kindness, every ethical choice, every moment of genuine connection with another human being or with nature is a step toward the brighter future that is possible for us. But individual change, while crucial, is not enough. We need to work together to transform our societies and systems. We need to create economies that value the well-being of all living beings above short-term profit. We need political systems that are truly representative and responsive to the needs of everyone, not just a privileged few. We need education that nurtures not only the intellect but also the heart and spirit. Time is of the essence. The visions I was shown made it clear that we are at a critical point in our collective history. The choices we make now will determine not only the fate of our species, but the future of all life on our planet. I know this message may seem overwhelming. It may be tempting to give in to despair or cynicism, to believe that the challenge is too great, or that it is already too late. But I want to assure you, with every conviction of my being, that it is not too late. The same divine force that brought me back from death to share this message is working through each of us, calling us to awaken to our true nature and our true purpose. Each of us has a role to play in this great transformation. You don't need to have had a near-death experience or received cosmic visions to make a difference. Your life, exactly as it is the perfect stage for this change. Every interaction, every decision, every moment of awareness is an opportunity to bring more light and love into the world. I ask you to look deeply within yourself. Connect with that part of you that knows there is more to life than what our physical eyes can see. Listen to the silent voice of wisdom within you that resonates with the truths I have shared, and then act from that place of connection and understanding. Start where you are. Practice compassion for yourself, for others, for all beings. Cultivate gratitude for the miracle of life. Make conscious choices that reflect your commitment to the greater good. Share your light with others, inspiring them through your example. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. There are millions of souls around the world who are awakening to this same call. Together, we form a network of light with the power to transform our world. The future is not written. It depends on us, on our choices, on our willingness to embrace our true nature and live according to the higher laws of love and universal wisdom. The choice is in our hands. May we choose wisely, with courage and with love, for the sake of all future generations. This is my final appeal to you, to all of us. Let's awaken. Let's change. Let's create together the bright future that is our divine birthright. The time is now. The call is urgent, and each of us is needed in this great work of cosmic transformation. May the light that was shown to me during my journey beyond life shine in your heart, guiding your steps and inspiring your actions. May we walk together toward a new dawn for humanity and all life on our beautiful blue planet. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell so you can catch every new video and help us spread this message to as many people as possible. See you next time.